Thank you for attending this session, and if you would just let me know where in the world you are so we have some idea of who we're talking to. Just find your spot on the map. What you'll need to do is go to the point of item and then just put it on the map. And as you can tell, I'm talking from Kansas today. Are the rest of us able to use the star and mark on the map where we're located? Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started then. My name is Kathy Ray. As I said, I am located in Kansas. I have been an educator for 39 years, working with all grades, kindergarten through 12th grade, but my focus has been with gifted learners. And so in several different roles that I've played, I've been the technology, problem-based learning person. And so today's topic is dynamic learning for 21st century learners. So I'd like for us to I can go back to the map again. Why don't you just tell me where you're from? And we'll go ahead and go on.
Kathy, do you need help advancing your slides?
No, I'm okay. I'm reading the comments. People are having technical difficulties.
Yeah, we are seeing the welcome slide that says the homeschool conference. Are you seeing something else different on your screen?
I am.
So I might need to help you advance slides. What slide would you like to be showing at this point?
It should be showing slide 2.
Optimizing learning, social networking, web
Yes.
tools, and problem-based learning? Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
That's the slide I have up. Yeah, if you need me to advance, just let me know.
Okay. So when we talk about optimizing learning, we talk today about social networking. Students no longer have to do the work all by themselves, especially when you're a homeschooler and maybe you don't have that access to other students who are at your same level, working on the same activities. So we're going to be talking about not only how students can use web tools and social networking for their problem-based learning approach, but also how their facilitators, the parent or whoever they're collaboratively working with to provide the education at home. So what we're looking for, did the slide switch this time? What we're looking for is facilitating learning with networked students. And so in today's world, when you facilitate the learner, instead of sitting and reading the books together or talking about a topic together, you form a new role with the learner and allow them to pursue the topic while you teach them the skill sets that they need. For example, they want to put a book together, so you show them how the tool is used, or they can't think of good sources for their research, and so you brainstorm with them good resources, or you talk to them about how they're going to brainstorm their project. Are we still having problems with the slides?
No problem with this slide, but I'm seeing slide 3, but everyone else is seeing the welcome page.
I'm not sure how to change that.
Kathy, you want to go ahead and just continue with your talk, and I'll figure out your slides?
Okay, great. So instead of being the person who is dispensing the information, we've become more the facilitator for the child to access the information. One of the big things that we wanted to look at as we're a facilitator of that information is helping the student thoughtfully create their digital identity, and talking about, as they create these authentic learning experiences, their private versus their public presence on the internet. And so the facilitator, one of the first tasks they're going to be doing is spending a lot of time Okay, my slide just got switched.
Hello, this is Nikki. I was going to have you switch to the slide that you're on so that the participants can see and hear you on the same slide. Is this where you need to be with Wordle?
This is where we,
All right. You're good to go. Everybody can see your slides now.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So in working with students in a school setting, what I find is that because technology is relatively new to their parents or to the older generation, that no one discusses the whole digital identity and how important it is as these students craft these authentic works that they actually know what kind of presence they have on the internet. So facilitating learning has become a different sort of creature. So some of the ways that students are going to be taking control of their own learning is in the possibilities that web tools bring to them. They don't have to wait for someone to teach them something now. They're able to access and build their own learning connections. And you'll see on here just a few of the ways that our students do that now. Digo, Delicious, those are some tools we're going to be talking about in a little bit, but all of our kids know what YouTube and MySpace and Facebook are, and they're using those to teach themselves. So facilitation has become far more important than teaching. So what would a networked student path look like? This is just one possibility of that path that a student could take. I would start them with Google Scholar Research. And in this location, what they're going to find is that all research isn't created equal, so that as you go to Google Scholar, you're looking at, is the reputation of the research reputable? And then students can use things like Delicious or Digo as bookmarking tools. They can not only post the sites to go back to them for future reference, they can also get in groups on Digo and look at other sites that people have bookmarked and share those bookmarks. So that's just one purpose for Digo, but even more than that, it's a tool where the student can go in and highlight, they can bookmark things they're reading, they can add sticky notes, they can take notes, they can make documents and images there. So Digo's a really good place for the student who is there for a little while, needs to take a break, and maybe even the next day wants to come back and work on that project again. So if we look at problem-based learning as it relates to homeschool students, the first thing for them is to be able to connect with other kids and the world and have that first-hand connection, foster the deep learning that we want them to have so that they're able to make connections and permanently learn those things that we want them to learn. We want them to engage in issues and questions that are relevant to their lives. If they're sitting there by themselves, the connection is hard to make. But if they use some of the tools that we give them, they're able to collaborate with someone who's not even there. They are able to have discussions or be in chat rooms and chat. They have their own little community outside of the homeschool classroom. They're able to brainstorm with other people, have those interactions, bounce ideas off of each other. So you as a facilitator, you're going to look at what it is that you want to teach the student, the standards that you have to meet, and then you're going to ask yourself, how would I write that as a driving question? So for example, if the standard is that they have to be able to use math skills and you've got certain objectives in that, you would ask yourself, what is going to inspire that student so that they're going to be excited about the learning, And what would be the question that wouldn't be easily answered that would point them towards mastering content and skills that would enable them to answer a complex question? In other words, not a easy look it up, here it is kind of answer. Creating driving questions then for the facilitator or their teacher takes a lot of time and careful thought. So as a facilitator of a homeschooler, if you have that professional learning network with other homeschoolers or with teachers who are more than willing to share, they can help you craft some of those driving questions. There are also a lot of resources online of units that have already been put together with driving questions so that you can get started until you know how you want that to look. Here's an example of what I'm talking about. The driving question in this was a two-pronged question, but it was having to do with mastering American poets. And so you'll notice that there's actually a link here that you could go and look at the whole lesson for this. But the teacher decided to make it a journey around America, student learning about poets and their poems, and they form an imaginary traveling team and explore America to gather information about these poets. So they have to make 6 stops along the way and make small presentations. So perhaps they go to a town where a poet has lived and they make a little presentation. Along that way, they are to journal their travels and their learning about the poets and their part of the country and how they were inspired, either in a blog, a diary, or a journal, so that they're logging what they've learned along the way. That's that research component, while they're creating something that's original and new. So here's a list of some of the resources that I would use if I was working with a group of students. And what I typically do is hand my students this list at the beginning of the year, and we go through and we explore what the resources are so that they feel comfortable with them. For homeschoolers, one of the ways that you could connect with other homeschoolers would be to form a NING, an N-I-N-G. And if you're not familiar with the concept, the NING is a social network, but it is a closed network, and you can make it by invitation only. NINGs for education are free websites, and for students, it's a way for them to connect. It has a blind email so that they can connect with other students without ever giving away their email addresses. They can collaborate on a NING with students from other homeschooling projects. You can post resources on the NING. They can post their finished products on the NING to share with other people that you've allowed into that closed community. And so it has a lot of possibilities for students to be able to collaborate. Along with that would be a wiki space, and the same kind of concept. For education, you can get a free wiki, and you can keep it by invitation only so that the students that you want them to collaborate with, they can contact through the wiki, but they don't have to actually have each other's location or address. The next one that I want to talk about is the Global Education NING. For those projects where you want them to be able to reach outside of just the community of homeschoolers that you know, this is a really good place to go to get those resources. I listed for you blog sites for gifted homeschoolers. One of the ways that students can have authentic writing is to blog. And so I would suggest that for them to get honest feedback on their opinions, that they would be able to put together a blog on the topic that they're working on and then share that opinion, which is backed by the research they've been doing, with other students who can, and other home educators who can give them some feedback on that. The AHA Learners has a website with resource on it as well, and one of the things that is on that website is a live binder. If you've not used live binders before, it's like having a binder or a notebook with dividers online. And a student, let's say that you are doing a long-term project and they want to continue adding to that project. One of the ways you could do that is have them start a live binder and then build into it the different sections that you want in the study that they're doing. Hoagie's Gifted is a really good place for students. It has links for research. There's safe links, and it's divided up into parent and educator and student. So if your student is looking for a topic, for example, he's looking for space resources, he can actually go into the kids side of Hoagie's, click on the links, go to the science link, and hook up with contests, competitions, NASA, Dissect a Frog, any of those kinds of things. For the parent or the facilitator of the learning, the homeschooler, Hoagie's educator and parent site has a wealth of ideas and information for you as well. It's also a way for parents to connect with each other. I mentioned Digo already. Delicious is very similar to Digo. I prefer Digo a little bit more. You can actually choose what organizations you hook up with inside of Digo. So for example, if I wanted only to have home educators and get their updates on their bookmarks, I could join that group, and then I would be able to set my my email so that if I wanted updates every time they were made, I could get that. If I wanted to check in once a week, or if I just wanted to go to Digo and check that group, I could do that as well. Shelfari is one of the ways that I've had students connect with what books they're reading, and when a student is looking for a book and they can't make up their mind what they want, I have them go to Shelfari and share with each other what books they've got, write their description of it so that the next person who goes in on their Shelfari can actually see what their recommendations were. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry, for some reason the slides have changed on my screen and some of them are now missing. So one of the things that I would say when you're getting ready to arm your students with actual authentic products is that an MP3 player is a really good place for them to be able to start creating those authentic works. They can do audio casts, they can do podcasts, they can do distance learning from places like OpenCourseWare, iUniversity. They can also use things like Google Hangout and Skype where they could contact their resources and experts that are in the field. Another way for students to organize, especially when there's so many different choices that they can make, is to use an RSS reader. And they can keep track of their posts from various places. They can use WordPress or Feedly to keep track of the resources that they've collected. Debbie, I use PowerPoint, and then I converted them to slides. Then once they get their materials organized, they've bookmarked all the research that they need, they're ready to put those documents together, they've got their journal of work completed and the information that they've learned, there are a lot of places like Pinterest or Glogster or Prezis or Wikispaces, Penzu that they can use in order to create those authentic products. Are there ideas that people would like to share or questions? Yes. You can do a search on OpenCourseWare, and the OpenCourseWare are classes that colleges will allow students to have the lectures, the resources to, without cost. And so if you just do a search for OpenCourseWare, you can find those classes. iUniversity is just one example of a place where you can go and get those resources. Do we have people who've used tools that they found especially successful that maybe aren't on the list? Casper, how do you use Edmodo? A couple of other tools that I didn't mention. If you have a homeschool student and they have maybe organizational issues, there's a program called Stopwatch, and you can actually set the stopwatch for the students so that they know exactly how much work and how much time they've got, and that seems to be for some students helpful. FAM Animation, I'll type that one in, it's on the list. But FAM Animation is an educational It's an educational animation program, which is pretty easy for students to use. Things like Flickr with photo sharing, and Ustream for broadcasting. Zanzar is a converter. It'll convert documents and images and books and things like that. Okay, Debbie, I guess that we'll end here.
You want to ask that again? I'm sorry. Oh, I didn't hear your question.
I said if there's no discussion or people are not interested in sharing, I guess we're finished.
Is there anyone that would like to ask some questions right now? I'll open up the mics and you guys, we'd like to hear from you.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Just to answer your question, I use Edmodo very similar to what you suggest with Ning. It is a great platform which also is secure with passwords, but it's got a great library in that you can add to and then direct it to the various students that you want to them to have access to. There's also a whole host of apps that are very useful for the various purposes. So I've used Edmodo now for a couple of years and find it very useful to roll over from class to class and from student to student to create little communities, learning communities. On it I have a community which is to do with remote teaching, which I'm very much interested in. I'm teaching kids that are all over the Pacific and in very remote locations. And so it's a great platform. I'm not as much familiar with Ning, but I'm very satisfied with Edmodo.
And I know that in the larger setting, a lot of our regular classroom teachers use the Edmodo. There's also something, and it's actually in the student tools list. It's called Storyline Online, and it's a Screen Actors Guild read-alongs. So for the student who doesn't have that collaborative group, it gives him the ability to have that group to read along with. Also, bookbuilder.cast.org is on that student tools for productions. And then Cogdogru Wikispaces has story tools, and he has a whole list of story tools that you can use in order for students to create their own books. Well, I'm very sorry the slides didn't all stay in where I uploaded them, so there were a few slides that were missing. I will try reloading that so that you'll be able to have that as a reference. Did the presentation go out to everyone who came in? Because I did upload it that way so that you could have access to it as well. If the presentation, if you want all of the slides, I will put it on the AHA Learners website. And then that way you can access those tools. Thank you for joining me today.